Hey pals, welcome back to another video. In today's, sorry, I just accidentally misclicked blind. Let me break this. Sorry about that. Anyways, in today's video, we're going to talk about 3 mistakes that bad rogues are making in PvP and how to fix them to start farming arena rating. Let's get right into the video. Alright pals, before I jump into the video, first I'm going to show you guys a trick that a viewer showed me a long time ago in game. If you actually target this guard in front of Stormwind and Shadow Step him, you can actually teleport underground. So since I shared this really cool trick with you, please like, comment, and subscribe on the video now, and we can call it even. Alright, so like I said, today's video we're talking about mistakes that bad rogues make in Arena, so let's jump right into it. Number one of the biggest mistakes that I see bad rogues make is actually poorly using their defensive cooldowns. So when I'm talking about defensive cooldowns, I'm talking about evasion, cloak of shadows, their vanish, the way they use their trinket, and also now in 9.1 that we have disarm back in the game, I would also consider that a defensive cooldown. I think it's important to recognize what you should trade in certain situations, but there are general ways to kind of look at what's the best to use. So let's go over some of the situations where trading cooldowns is really obvious and you know what is the best thing to do. Alright, so I've got a great example for my live stream here. I'm playing RM Pal and I'm playing into a turbo cleave, so Enhanced Shaman Warrior. And basically this is just showing an efficient way to use my disarm. So against something like a turbo cleave, one of your highest priority disarms is going to be an Enhanced Shaman's Doom Winds. So you'll see the icon for that in a second. This is a 1-minute cooldown. Your disarm's a 45-second cooldown. It's very ideal to disarm every single one of these Doom Winds. That being said, there are situations where you might want to disarm something else. Maybe if it's a shattering throw to save your mage from coming out of ice block where you might lose the game. Everything is very situational, but there is a very general script with disarm that you can follow. I'll go ahead and show you guys here. So the shaman goes ahead here, pops this. This icon right here is actually Doom Winds. Versus an enhance, you almost always want to just disarm this right away. As you can see, I instantly respect that in trade. Sometimes, even at lower ratings, you're going to bait enhanced shamans into offensively trinketing this disarm. You'll be able to punish that. Like I said, everything is situational. But for most of the melee classes you play disarm into, there will be something that you can generally script your disarm with. So I'll go ahead and I'll cover some of those really quick. So at the moment, there's currently 3 classes that I always play disarm into. Those are warriors, enhancement shamans, and rogues, no matter what spec they're playing, for the rogue that is. And I have a pretty scripted disarm. So for warriors, you're always going to look to disarm their warbreaker. This is a 45-second cooldown. Like I said, once again, situational. Sometimes it's not the best, but it's very safe to do this. As we just mentioned, the enhancement shaman, you're going to try to disarm their Doom Winds. This is a 1-minute cooldown. And then when it comes to rogues, for subtlety, honestly, if you can disarm them during a shadow dance, this is really good. But another way to disarm rogues that's really effective overall is when they use their blind. If you disarm them, they actually will not be able to sap off of their blind unless they trinket your disarm. With an assassination rogue, more specifically, you could disarm during Vendetta. This is really high value, but you don't want to save it for only Vendetta because Vendetta is a 2-minute cooldown. You can also be using it anytime they have their kidney shot kind of off diminishing return. You know they want to stun you. It will kind of delay their go, you could say, or their ability to be able to stun you first. But all in all, those are really important ways to use disarm, and they 100% come into play when it comes to being a good rogue. When looking at our other defensives, like Evasion and Cloak of Shadows, for example, these aren't as scripted. When you're using Cloak, sometimes if you're playing against something like TSG, which is a comp that's a Frost DK and a Warrior, you generally won't really use this as a defensive to stay alive. You'll kind of use it more as an offensive utility spell to maybe get out of a slow from a DK or even prevent CC to come on you from like a healer. Let's say you're getting hexed or cyclone by a druid or a shaman. But if you're playing versus something like another team of rogue mage or like a feral with a mage, 100% you need to make sure you save your cloak to use it defensively. Most of the time, you're going to be trading cloak with big spells like combustion, really big cooldowns, as well as things like a priest mind games, which is going to make you unable to do damage and also unable to do healing. So really important that you use cloak defensively in matchups where you need to use it defensively, but it's also okay to just kind of use this as an offensive utility spell in certain matchups. When looking at evasion, I don't really have any big examples of this, but one piece of advice I can give you for how people misuse this all the time is to just use evasion at high health. Sometimes if you're fighting against something like a warrior, they can overpower you. Oh my god. They can use overpower on you, and they can actually hit you through evasion, as well as, let's say you're fighting against like a beam hunter. Sometimes their pets can just hit you from behind if you're kiting in an awkward way. So it's really safe. Let's say you're fighting against a jungle. You know, you're fighting against a hunter and a feral. Your healer gets put into a trap, and you want to use your evasion while your healer's in CC to save them from having to use trinket. Just use evasion instantly. Trade your defensive with their CC on your healer, and it'll make sure that you stay safe at a high health. If you pop this last second, it's very likely you're going to die, even though you use this cooldown a lot of the time. But that's the best kind of advice I could give for evasion and cloak. Now, something else I want to point out when talking about defensives overall is rogues are very specific in the fact that we have a spell called Vanish. We can literally vanish out of the fight, and sometimes if it's a situation where cloak and evasion might not be enough, let's say your healer's going to sit a really long CC chain, the best decision might just be to trinket out of a stun, or even if you're not stunned, to just vanish out. Trinket into a vanish, or just vanishing and running away as far as possible to survive while your healer's getting CC'd. Doing this will actually save you your other core defensives that you will still be able to use, and a lot of the times can be really good. I think there's a lot of situations where people try to get away with pressing cloak and evasion, and they end up having to vanish as well. This is a really bad overlap. No Goom, by the way. I do not want to duel you, man. I'm recording a YouTube video, brother. But anyways, this is something to think about when you're playing a rogue in arena, and hopefully this helps. So let's move on to number 2 now. Okay, for number 2, this is probably one of the biggest reasons why rogues are not successful in arena. This is kind of more important for sub rogues, but it's also pretty important for assassination rogues, and this is not actually understanding cross CC or why it's so important. So for this one, I'll find some examples and we can kind of go over those. Okay, so really quick before I jump into this, what cross CC is, this basically means while you're stunning the target that you want to actually kill in arena, that you have CC on their healer and optimally on the off target as well in 3v3. So basically just crossing CC on the kill target and the off targets at the same time. The reason why it's important to cross CC and not just CC randomly and stun randomly is because the other team will be able to trade their cooldowns without having to use their trinkets, and you're basically going to make a game take longer to close out than it should. For example, let's say in the game I'm about to show you, I stun the rogue as soon as I see him, but I don't CC his healer. His healer can just put down a power word barrier, and then let's say I randomly blind the healer without stunning the rogue might just vanish and run away. Whenever you give situations like this, everybody can save their trinkets, and they'll always have ways to kind of like survive and save each other. So it's really important to lock down targets at the same time, get CC, cross CC, and close out games. So I'll go ahead and show you an example in the opener here, and I'll explain how if I didn't do what I did, why this could have been a lot worse. So in the opener here versus RM Priest, I'm playing RM Pal. They go ahead, they stun my Paladin and my Mage. What I do is I actually blind their healer from stealth. This way the mage and the rogue cannot stop me. And then the first thing I do is I kidney shot the rogue, and then I walk over and I garrote silence the mage. So as you can see, they opened up on my team first. They have my pally in a ring and they have my mage in a stun. But by myself as a rogue, I was able to CC all 3 targets on the other team. Now, assuming the mage on the other team is a bit better of a player, he might actually just use Dragon's Breath on me before I can garrote him, so this isn't as good of an opener, but since I'm playing Assassination, it's still not the worst, because it gives me time to get my bleeds rolling. I'll still be able to sap off of my blind, or my mage will be able to get a ring or sheep, and we will still kind of get offensive pressure out of this setup. So as you can see, we keep doing a bit of DPS here. I get my full bleeds on the rogue. We're breaking a shield. I vanish out in sap. And what this does is it ends up forcing the rogue to vanish. I have Vendetta on him at this point, though, so I see him in stealth, and the healer basically has to trade trinket and pops down his dome. Now, in this situation, if I just open on the rogue, like I said, the priest could have just put down this dome or even just use rapture or something like this without even using his trinket, and this would lead to a much sketchier game. Okay, so for number 3, the last mistake that I see bad rogues make quite often is all about blind. Basically, bad blinds versus good blinds. It is very important as a rogue to get value out of your blind. This is a 2-minute cooldown. It is instant 8-second CC. That kind of gives you guarantee follow-up CC if they do not trinket out of it. This is a very threatening ability, so if you're getting good value out of this, you're going to have a lot of success. If you're not getting value out of it, it will show in your results. So really basic, I can put it in one way for you guys. A good blind is a blind that is going to force a cooldown from the opponent. So you're either going to force them to trinket out of it, or you're going to peel basically somebody off of you or your teammates to let your teammates survive. 9 out of 10 times you'll be using your blind offensively, but there are rare occasions where a defensive blind is good. Those are harder to recognize when it's good to use, but like I said, a good blind is a blind where you're going to force a trinket out of the enemy team or any type of cooldown. If it's a paladin, for example, a blessing of protection, that is a good blind. And the way to do this is by actually understanding when it's a good time to use. So I'll find an example and I'll explain that to you guys. Okay, so the example I have for you guys is from a 3v3 game here. And this is basically showing you one really obvious situation where you can get value at a blind. So we're doing our opener here versus this DK DH team. We force the DH to actually trinket on our combustion and use his nether walk. And as you can see, his Resto Sham is still on a polymorph. Now, if I was to blind at this exact moment in time, it might not be the best because the Frost Death Knight is not in CC. He might be able to just use Anti-Magic Zone. Also, the Demon Hunter still has 3.3 seconds left on his nether walk, so we're really not going to be able to get that much value. It's not really a guaranteed trinket, although blinding here wouldn't be that bad. What happens is my mage actually tells me he's going to get a resheep, and he lands his resheep. So at this point now, as you can see, the Demon Hunter is basically at 27%. He's out of nether walk. I know that a full blind 100% is going to force a cooldown from the Shaman because the DH has already used his nether walk and his trinket. He's already used his blur. There's a chance he uses darkness and they use AMZ, but even at this point, it's very, very, very sketchy for them to try to get away with just using that. So this is a pretty safe blind, and as you can see, the Shaman goes ahead and almost instantly trinkets that. That being said, this is going to be situational in most games you play, but it's really important to know that if you press blind, either they will have to trinket that to save their teammates, or they will have to trinket the follow-up CC out of blind. If you can't force that scenario, it's probably best to just hold it. And like I said, using it defensively, this is something situational. You probably will almost never do this with your first blind. Something I like to do recently is actually use blind on rep pallies during their wings. This is really punishing to them if they decide to sit it, and you could sap off. You can almost CC their entire wings, and if they trinket it, you can kind of go ahead and stun them right away anyways if you have stun DRs. So this is definitely something that's good to abuse at the moment with Rets with their absurd amounts of burst. But yeah, that's basically a good blind. And like I said, bad rogues really don't use blind correctly, and I think this tip can maybe help you improve a lot, so try to really focus on getting high value out of this ability. Anyways, pals, if you want to support your boy, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As you can see, almost all of my viewers are not even subscribed. I would also really appreciate if you could comment on the video and leave a like. It will help me in the algorithm a ton. I really appreciate you guys for watching my content and supporting me. I'm currently streaming every single day over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Palomore. I'm trying to queue for 100 days straight to reach rank 1 for the first time, and honestly, it's going pretty well so far. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Usually the video fades out by now, but this time it didn't. So I've got you stuck hanging in here again, huh? Well, I'm going to just do some stretching, don't mind me. I'm a pretty fit guy. I used to be more fit. Okay, this is the end.